in terms of our overall work, we focus on the issue of house demolitions to give people a handle on the occupation and how it works and what Israel's intentions are. Over the last 41 years, since the occupation began in 1967, Israel's demolished more than 25,000 Palestinian homes, only in the occupied territories. Many thousands of more demolitions, of course, have gone on inside Israel over the last 60 years. We don't know yet the count from Gaza. It's been estimated by some humanitarian organizations that up to 20 or 30,000 homes have been demolished, destroyed, or made uninhabitable by the Israeli army in the last month in Gaza. Especially because, again, Israel has developed forms of urban warfare that, in a sense, look at houses of civilians as a part of the battlefield. And the Israeli army progresses through refugee camps, through urban neighborhoods, through the walls of family homes, destroying them on the way. So that the issue of house demolitions, in a sense, gets to the essence of the conflict. You know, if Israel, for the last 60 years, has systematically destroyed Palestinian villages, towns, urban neighborhoods, houses throughout the country, not only in the occupied territories, but throughout the country. Last year, the Israeli government demolished 3 times more homes of Israeli citizens, who are, of course, Arabs, Palestinians or Bedouins, than they did in the occupied territories. So this policy is not limited to the occupied territories. Which means then that, you know, if you destroy someone, if you deny someone the right to a home, which is a fundamental human right, and of course in English at least the word homeland is connected to home. So you're denying a home, whether it's on an individual family basis or on a national basis. The message is clear: get out. You have no place in this country. And so beyond the occupation, beyond the conflict, beyond everything else, the issue of house demolitions gets to the very essence of the conflict. Because part of our resistance is to resist the demolition of Palestinian homes, but also to rebuild homes that have been demolished. You know, the way the conflict is often presented, it's Israel against the Arabs. It's sometimes called the Israeli-Arab conflict, as if Israel and the Arabs are enemies. It's not really true, at least certainly not in terms of governments. Because, I mean, first of all, as we know, Israel and Jordan in 1948 went into the war together. Both of them cutting out the Palestinians. But beyond that, the so-called moderate Arab states, you know, of the Arab League, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia is very moderate, you know, the Gulf states and so on. These states that don't exactly have a sterling human rights record, they don't exactly represent their own peoples very well, in a sense have very similar foreign policy goals to Israel. You know, they're all concerned about Iran. They're all concerned about Islamic fundamentalism undermining their regimes, including Saudi Arabia. They're concerned about the Palestinians. I think they're all afraid of the Palestinians, partly because the Palestinians represent not only kind of a revolutionary resistance fervor that these countries don't exactly welcome in their own countries, But the Palestinians are very proud of their democratic traditions. The Palestinians have held the most democratic elections ever in the Middle East, that even Trump Israeli democratic elections. And again, I don't think that's especially appreciated by most of the members of the Arab League. You know, the members of the Arab League actually appreciate Israel's military might. After all, if Israel's military can be at their disposal, you know, that really adds to their power. These are all regimes that worship military power, and who has more prowess with the most cutting-edge weaponry than Israel? And Israel has that special relationship to the United States. So I would even go further and say the Saudi initiative is not only an invitation kind of to Israel to join the Middle East, it's almost a plea. What the Saudi initiative is saying, what the Arab League is saying is, we want you to join our region. We want you to be a regional power. We need you to fend off all these other forces that are threatening our regimes. But we can't do it as long as you have this occupation. From 1993 to 2000, in the Oslo so-called peace process, sitting face to face with the Palestinians, negotiating land, water, borders, sovereignty, Jerusalem, refugees. During those 7 years, Israel doubled its settler population. In 1993, there were 200,000 settlers. By 2000, there were 400,000 settlers. During those same years, Israel built 29 major highways linking the settlement blocks into Israel. Ironically, it was during the Oslo peace process that Israel eliminated the two-state solution. Here the wall goes through Abu Dis. No Israelis in miles and miles of this picture. Where's the security? If you have Palestinians on both sides of the wall, I mean, that's security? Supposing you need security? No, the wall is not for security, it's a border. But look, this is Al-Quds University. The wall goes through the center of the campus of a major Palestinian university, and not the only university. Last year, when the British Union of Teachers called for an academic boycott of Israeli universities, there was outrage. I heard that the chancellor of this university, or the president or whatever, wrote a letter of outrage, violation of academic freedom. Hundreds of American university presidents sent letters of outrage to the British Union of Teachers, and Nobel Prize winners, and professors. There's a wall for years now going through the center of a Palestinian university. Where's the outrage? Why isn't this a major issue on American college campuses? And I'll go further. On the second day of the invasion of Gaza, Israel destroyed the Islamic University. The university of 17,000 students was bombed. Did you hear any outrage? Did anybody in this campus write a letter? Hopefully there were some, because there were some protests. There's especially an organization called FIP, Faculty for Peace, for Israel-Palestine Peace. There were some academics that spoke out, but none of the academics has signed a letter of outrage to the British Union of Teachers. Why? Why are Israeli academic institutions sacred in terms of academic freedom and not Palestinian universities? Here's Israel that has a 41-year occupation, massive violations of human rights, an invasion of Gaza in which 400 kids are killed. And yet, Israel's the good guy. The Palestinians are the bad guys. They're the terrorists. So Israel has succeeded in taking what you could call the worst case scenario, the worst product you could possibly want to sell: occupation, oppression, violence, killing, violations of human rights, and turned it into the good thing. that the United States supports. And the oppressed people are being sanctioned in Gaza by the United States. Wow. If you can do that, if you can take all these things and frame them in a way that the people buy it, that's a tremendous model as well. We've built more than 160 homes that have been Palestinian homes that have been demolished over the past 10 years, which is not much in light of 25,000. But if you think of 160 political acts of resistance of Palestinians and Israelis together, I think that's a very meaningful gesture of peacemaking. And for us, and I think for the Palestinians, it means even more, because every house we build together is a reaffirmation of our insistence that we share this country, that we're going to stay here together, rather than one people, and especially the Israeli people, driving the other people out of the country.